But what lum falche, Corriv Gapina and Shot and you, is Misha Corla or Louise Minahan, Beg Meg, Fine Marker Hirla and Shot in you. You are gathered here today to remember the men and women of 1916. Easter is a very important time in the Republican calendar, as not only a time when we remember our history, but it's also a time when we reaffirm our commitment to implementing the vision of 1916. Today is also about remembering all those who died in the pursuit for Irish freedom. I would now like to give a warm welcome to our main speaker of today, former ex-prisoner and General Secretary of Éirígí, Brendan McCunnock.
A hardja, agus a hamradithe. Gur mai aga vas an curry le bheith seo liv sé aniu. An achlia, han omas agus an nora hurt van a dini kruga lig and for a boasers and search in a herren. I'd like to thank you first of all for inviting me to come and address you at this commemoration in Dublin today. Dublin, with its long and vibrant Republican tradition, like so many other parts of Ireland, has good reason to be proud of its contribution in every phase of the struggle for national liberation. As we gather here at Easter to remember the men and women of 1916, we pay special tribute to the volunteer army, the volunteer soldiers of the Irish Citizens' Army. The struggle taken up by James Connolly, Micheál Mullen, Constance Markovitz and their comrades in 1916 was later carried on by Republicans of the highest calibre. Republicans such as Liam Mallows, Thomas Ashe, Terence McSweeney, Frank Ryan, like Darcy and McNeila in the 1940s, through to more recent years, when that same struggle was carried on by Bobby Sands and many other brave men and women. We remember each and every one of those today. Each and every one of those who give their lives in pursuit of Irish freedom had to face the personal difficulties and hardships which involvement in our freedom struggle had brought to them and to their families. Each of those volunteers was an ordinary person faced with extraordinary choices and extraordinary times. There were ordinary people like you here today who saw the injustice caused in this country by capitalist exploitation and by the foreign occupation of Ireland. There were people who decided to take action. They could, of course, have ignored the injustice around them and instead have opted for a more quiet life. But their desire for freedom, their desire for justice in Ireland was such that they committed themselves fully to the Republican cause. So it is right that we remember them through commemorations such as this, and that we rededicate ourselves into that same struggle for an Irish Republic. Easter is also a time for each of us to remember those close friends and comrades who have given their lives in pursuit of our Republican goals and ideals. It is a time to remember the sacrifices endured by their families. It is a time to reflect on the ideals which motivated them. At Easter each year, Republicans recall the words of the 1916 Proclamation, one of the most progressive documents written. The Easter Rising remains one of the defining events in modern Irish history, and the 1916 Proclamation remains one of the defining political documents within Irish republicanism. In simple terms, it spells out the demands for national self-determination, for social and economic justice and democracy, to cherish all the nation equally, and to claim the wealth of Ireland for the entire people of Ireland. Those who came out in 1916 and in subsequent decades were men and women with principles, men and women with a vision for a new, more equal and freer Ireland. The events of Easter week 1916 are well known to many of us. But what most people are unaware of is that one of the legacies of 1916 was to lead to a class struggle which was waged in this country in the years between 1918 and 1923. It's often forgotten that there were 5 general strikes in southern and western Ireland between that period of August 18 and August 23. That there were many other localised general strikes in various parts of the country, both against the British occupation and against the capitalist exploitation of our people. Land seizures and workplace occupations began taking place, and in Limerick City, and other areas, workers' Soviets were declared. Women got involved in politics on an unprecedented scale. They were involved in the war and in the underground Republican political apparatus. The war for independence unleashed struggles by workers and small farmers for control of factories and the breaking up of large ranches. In short, the revolt for Irish independence was fast becoming a revolt of the exploited classes against their oppressors as well. The two states which eventually emerged in this island, which were created through the partition of this country, those two states were and still remain hostile to the interests of Irish workers, and they have acted time and time again against the struggles of those workers. It goes without saying, comrades, what the position of Connolly and the Irish Citizens' Army would have been to present-day trade union leaders who feel their members day and daily in this country at a time when capitalism is in crisis and when the working class, the unemployed, the ill, the elderly and the young are under attack across this island. It also goes without saying what the position of Connolly and the Irish Citizens' Army would have been to those political parties who claim to espouse working class or Republican teachings, but who endorse partition and who spend most of their time knocking on the doors of the right-wing establishment parties seeking some form of coalition government. Connolly made his position very clear in unambiguous terms in 1910 when he concluded his pamphlet, Labour, Nationality and Religion, in very simple terms. He stated, "The day has passed for patching up the capitalist system. It must go."